Welcome to the Leaky MOSFET channel. Today, we are going to create stock firmware for Asus laptop and Asus desktop. To accomplish this, we are going to do 5 different tasks. 1. Download BIOS update from the Asus website. 2. Extract the downloaded file. 3. Remove capsule header. 4. Verify if the bin file is a complete system BIOS or BIOS region only. 5. If the bin file is a BIOS region only, follow the guide to create a stock firmware. Let's proceed to task number 1. Download BIOS update utility from Asus website. Open your browser. Search for asus.com. Select the search icon. Type the brand and model, then select the model of the laptop. Click the support button. Select driver and tools, and select BIOS and firmware. Locate the version that you need. Then click the download button. The download should start automatically. You can follow these procedures for downloading other Asus laptop models. Next, we are going to extract the downloaded BIOS file of Asus ROG Zephyrus G14. Open BiosCreator. In your BiosCreator, select Stock Firmware Tools and select the Asus button. A new window will pop up. Select the exe file and drag it to the Asus BIOS tool window. It will automatically select the exe option, then hit the Go button. A new file will be created. This is a cap file. Now drag it again to the Asus BIOS tool window. It will automatically select the Remove Cap Header option, then hit the Go button again. A new bin file will be created. Next, we will verify if this bin file is only a system BIOS or BIOS region only. For example, a full stock firmware must compare the extracted system BIOS if it has the same size as your backup firmware, or check the file name, check the capacity of SPI chip, and read the chip's part number. While the BIOS region size is way below the valid firmware size. So, let's look at our bin file size. You will notice that this extracted firmware size is almost the same as our backup firmware size, and you will also see that the file name is a system BIOS. So this is a full stock firmware. Now we are going to look at our bin file to verify if it is a valid firmware size for system BIOS. Here's an example of a valid firmware size for system BIOS. As you can see, our bin file has 16,384 kilobytes, and a valid firmware size for system BIOS is also 16,384 kilobytes, so this bin file is a valid system BIOS firmware. This bin file is now ready to be flashed using an SPI programmer. Next, we will proceed to our example number 2. We will extract stock firmware for Asus TUF B450M+. Open BiosCreator. In your BiosCreator, select Stock Firmware Tools and select the Asus button. A new window will pop up. Select the zip file and drag it to the Asus BIOS tool window. It will automatically select the zip or RAR option, then hit the Go button. A new file will be created. This is a cap file. Now drag it again to the Asus BIOS tool window. It will automatically select the Remove Cap Header option. Then hit the Go button again. A new bin file will be created. Next, we will verify again if this bin file is a complete system BIOS or BIOS region only. As I mentioned in our first example, if the extracted system BIOS have the same size as your backup, then this is a full stock firmware. Also, we are going to check the valid firmware size if this bin file is a valid firmware for system BIOS. As you can see, the bin file size has a 16,384 kilobytes, while the valid firmware for system BIOS is also a 16,384 kilobytes. So this bin file is a valid firmware for system BIOS. We will now proceed to our example number 3. We are going to extract stock firmware for Asus Vivobook Max. Open BiosCreator. In your BiosCreator, select Stock Firmware Tools, and select the Asus button. A new window will pop up. Select the exe file and drag it to the Asus BIOS tool window. It will automatically select the exe option, then hit the Go button. A new file will be created. This is a cap file. Now drag it again to the Asus BIOS tool window. It will automatically select the Remove Cap Header option, then hit the Go button again. A new bin file will be created. Now, we will verify if this bin file is a system BIOS or BIOS region only. You can see that the bin file size is 6144 kilobytes and it is way below the valid firmware size because the valid firmware size for system BIOS is 8192 kilobytes. So this extracted bin file is a BIOS region only. Now we will proceed to task number 5. I will show you how to create stock firmware from the backup. First, you will download the dump bin file, get a backup copy of the laptop's firmware by reading the content from the laptop's system BIOS chip, then follow my steps to create stock firmware. Open your BiosCreator. In your BiosCreator, select the UEFI firmware tools and select the BIOS region button. A new window will pop up. Drag the extracted bin file to the BIOS region area and drag the dump bin to the target firmware area, then select the repair button. A new file will be created. Now, the new bin file has a firmware size of 8192 kilobytes after creating stock firmware from the backup, and the valid firmware for system BIOS is also 8192 kilobytes. Then the extracted stock firmware is now ready to be flashed using an SPI programmer. Finally, we have now created stock firmware for Asus laptops using BiosCreator. If you have more questions about the valid firmware size, you can also visit www.bioscreator.com/manual/valid firmware size. Let's summarize what we've done. 1. We download BIOS update from the Asus website. 2. We extract the downloaded file. 3. We remove capsule header. 4. We verify if the bin file is a complete system BIOS or BIOS region only. 5. We create stock firmware for BIOS region only. You can also download the BiosCreator at www.bioscreator.com, or follow the link in the description. If you have more questions, you can also visit our support forum by typing support.leakymosfet.com. Also, if you need some laptop batteries, LCDs, and keyboard requirements, you can check our online store at www.leakymosfet.com, or message us via Facebook. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe.